Good evening, everybody. Welcome to San Mateo's 2022 State of the City. I am Mayor Rick Bonilla, and I want to thank you, everyone, who is joining tonight's presentation, appropriately titled San Mateo, a Sustainable, Healthy, and Equitable Future. I'd like to start off by recognizing my fellow council members, Deputy Mayor Diane Pappen, and City Council members Joe Goethals, Amaran Slee, and Eric Rodriguez. I want to recognize our city manager, Mr. Drew Corbett, and all of our city employees who have been working tirelessly throughout the pandemic to serve San Mateo. I also would like to acknowledge my extremely supportive wife, Suzanne. Without her support, I would not be able to serve as I do, representing the city of San Mateo in all of the different ways that I do. The last time I gave the San Mateo State of the City was in person, back in 2018, during my first term as mayor. We're hosting this virtually tonight because it's safer as a result of COVID. In many ways, the pandemic has forced us to live in the moment and think of the immediate needs of the community. But tonight, we're here to reflect on our accomplishments and also look forward to our future. We have accomplished so much in recent years, but we recognize that we still have much more work to do. The modern world is constantly changing, and there's no going back to the way things were. Our world is changing, and we must change with it. One of the ways we've changed is, as of the last census, we are now the largest city in San Mateo County. And that just means that we have even more considerations when making sure the city continues to provide services that meet the needs of all of our residents. For those of you who don't know me, I first got involved with the city back in 2001 as part of the committee that helped create plans for our transit corridor and development of the Bay Meadows neighborhood, which is now a premier example of transit-oriented development. Following that, I was a member of the Public Works Commission for 6 years, where I focused on our infrastructure and the environment. I then served on the Planning Commission for 3 years, where I learned how important it is for us to think about long-range planning. And then I was appointed in 2015 and elected in 2017 to serve on the City Council. A big part of the reason I got involved in local government is because I have a deep passion for sustainable planning, addressing our affordable housing needs, improving and greening our infrastructure, and expanding our transportation systems, all while creating good jobs and fighting climate change. These are all pillars for how we create a sustainable, healthy, and equitable community. Your council members also serve on regional boards. I am a member of the Executive Board of Directors with Peninsula Clean Energy, and I sit as Vice Chair on the Board of Rethink Waste. I am the Vice Chair with Heart of San Mateo County, working on housing issues, and I serve as a member of the Regional Planning Committee. Excuse me, slight hiccup there. Here we go. And I serve as a member of the Regional Planning Committee with the Association of Bay Area Governments. Additionally, I'm the chair of the Governance, Transparency, and Labor Relations Policy Committee with the League of California Cities, which is a statewide organization. This is my second term as mayor, and like many of you, I am a dedicated San Matean who prides myself on building a community that is visionary in our plans to enhance sustainability and is supported by a robust public infrastructure system. We must work to enhance our quality of life so that both our current and future generations can thrive in San Mateo. Now let's move on to the agenda. Here's a summary of what we'll discuss this evening. We'll hear about supporting those in need. The past 2 years have been incredibly challenging. We'll discuss the work being done to support our most vulnerable. And the budget and economic impacts as a result of COVID, because city finances, your public dollars, are the backbone of how we serve San Mateo. We'll talk about infrastructure projects and sustainability. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, we must continue to look forward to a more sustainable future, and we have made great progress on important projects over this year. I'll discuss ways we can collaborate. You can collaborate with us, the city government, because together we are San Mateo, and we need to work collaboratively on important issues like housing, equity, and improving our collective quality of life. We'll talk about our future. It often takes years, if not decades, for major projects to come to fruition, and we need to have more visionary efforts to address our housing needs and plan for our future. These are things we can all work on here and now to address the existential challenges and social issues that we all face today. I will work tirelessly to improve and increase the pace of efforts the city is taking to be resilient and proactive to address the challenges of our climate, COVID, and the economy. I hope you will join me in these efforts. I know that many of us didn't imagine the pandemic would have stretched on as long as it has. COVID is continuing to take a toll on all of us, and we are doing our best to not only continue providing critical city services, but also to support our residents and our business community. We are doing this by working on both immediate and longer-term solutions to address these impacts. We're helping the vulnerable. During the height of the pandemic, when schools were forced to close, our Parks and Recreation Department supported over 100 youth with the Learning Education Assistance Program. They used 2 of our recreation centers to create classrooms where they offered support for distance learning, and they're now continuing to offer after-school programs for our kids. We've been able to safely return to in-person programming, including offering summer camps outdoors in our parks, which is no small accomplishment, while also offering hundreds of virtual programs. In addition to our youth, we are working to help protect our seniors who are at greater risk. We have served over 8,000 meals to seniors. We offer a grocery shopping assistance program, and we're continuing to operate a program that offers subsidized taxi rides for older adults and those who are disabled. Our library has been out in the community sharing library resources and educational materials. We hosted a tech lending hub where people can come by and borrow equipment at no cost. We circulated over 264,000 ebooks, and we created a delivery program for those who are homebound. We know many have been struggling to remain in their homes and were unable to work while businesses were forced to close. We've contributed over $1 million toward rental assistance from local, state, and federal sources to help make sure our residents are able to keep a roof over their heads. I know this has been a really difficult time, and we've seen an increase in people needing help, which is why I joined the San Mateo County Mayor's Mental Health Initiative. This countywide group of leaders is forming to look at ways to increase access to mental health care services, retain providers who have been leaving our community, and help make mental health services more affordable. We are working to assist our small business community and the local employers who support our community. We created a small business task force to help coordinate resources with our chamber, city staff, and the San Mateo County Economic Development Association. And we provided financial assistance through the San Mateo County Strong Fund. We created a permanent outdoor dining program, and we're changing the way we use public spaces to meet the desire to gather outdoors. We're currently in the process of designing a pedestrian mall, which will enhance the experience downtown on B Street between 1st and 3rd Avenues. San Mateo continues to be a welcoming city for new businesses during COVID, and this slide shows a few businesses that have recently opened. And I'm looking at that now. I see the Noshery, which is, I went there and I really had a great time. They had a great sandwich that I ate, so I intend to support that. But I'm going to be stopping by some of these other businesses too, and I hope you will also. When we talk about a sustainable future, we need to consider the changing nature of our modern retail environment as well. Like all other communities, online retail has had a huge impact on brick and mortar businesses. Shopping centers like Hillsdale and many of our small businesses are experiencing significant challenges because more people are buying online. This is something that many are contributing to, and it's also something we can do better with. Whenever possible, please consider shopping locally. And you can also check out San Mateo County's new Shop Local app for discounts. Remember, these businesses contribute local tax dollars that support the important services that San Mateo residents rely on. The city budget has been hard hit due to the pandemic, and our general fund revenues decreased by nearly $20 million over the last 2 years as compared to where we were headed before the pandemic. The Federal American Rescue Act, from which the city received $19.27 million, was an important lifeline, but those are one-time funds that can't support ongoing needs. Fortunately, our current fiscal year 21-22 general fund budget is doing much better than we had initially expected, with $155.2 million in revenue and $146.6 million in expenditures planned. That's an improvement. We were able to reverse our anticipated deficit because of two key factors. We remained prudent and implemented a fiscal sustainability plan that reduced expenditures. Additionally, because of property transfers and the incremental increases in property taxes, we've seen increasing revenues, which is good for our budget, but it also means that the cost of buying a home in San Mateo has grown even more out of reach for many. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we're in the process of looking at what our long-term forecast is expected to be. As of now, we're expecting rainy day reserves to be drawn down over the coming years due to our ongoing pension obligations and some of our important revenue sources, like hotel taxes, being reduced by the pandemic. Overall, we're on good financial ground, but we have to be prepared for any possible financial difficulties in the future, and we've seen that those can be unpredictable at this point. So while we continue to remain fiscally conservative and look at reducing expenditures, we may also need to look at revenue enhancement measures in the coming year. Some people may ask, why does this matter? Well, it's because a strong, sustainable city budget is key to maintaining and improving quality of life in San Mateo. Our general fund supports services like our parks, emergency responders, community development, housing programs, and public works projects like street repairs, and so many other important infrastructure improvements. One of our biggest responsibilities is to ensure our infrastructure is reliable, resilient, and economically responsible. We've accomplished a lot over the last year, primarily due to long-range plans and aggressively pursuing funding options. We recently opened our brand new fire station number 25, which is located on Shafter Street, where we're also creating a new neighborhood park. We celebrated the completion of the 25th Avenue grade separation project, which consists of 3 new grade separations of the Caltrain tracks at 25th, 28th, and 31st Avenues, as well as a new Hillsdale Caltrain station. These circulation improvements were a core part of the original plans to create Bay Meadows and are improving east-west circulation and connectivity. We've renovated the garage at Central Park, upgraded our downtown parking meters so you can now pay by phone. And in front of our downtown parking garages, we just added electronic signs that show you in real time the number of parking spaces located inside that garage by floor. So when you're approaching one of our downtown parking structures and you're trying to park, take a look at those new signs. It's so much better than continuing to circle around the block, which causes something everybody hates: congestion. Here in San Mateo, we are not an island, and we're impacted by regional traffic congestion. Since we're at the crossroads of 92 and 101, transportation issues have to be addressed as a regional issue. We're doing our part by getting involved with the Association of Bay Area Governments, known as ABAG, to improve transportation, including Plan Bay Area 2050, which looks to make transit more affordable, equitable, and easy to use by aligning schedules, integrating fares, and providing affordable rides. The 101 Express Lanes project will add a lane in each direction to encourage carpooling and is expected to be completed later this year. We're also working with our local transit providers like Caltrain and Samtrans to promote greater and more sustainable access to public transportation in San Mateo County. The recently passed $1 trillion federal infrastructure package is also expected to provide billions toward enhancements in the Bay Area and could help electrify our Samtrans and Caltrain systems. On our local roads, last year alone, the city completed a number of bicycle and pedestrian improvements and either reconstructed or extended the life of nearly 4.5 miles of our local streets. We're continuing to think about long-term enhancements and the circulation element in our general plan. We're also thinking of how we can address traffic through housing with transit-oriented development and improved parking standards. Anyone who's driven around San Mateo during a major storm has probably seen something similar to this photo in the top left corner. It shows a sanitary sewer overflow. The recent winter rains highlight the importance of our clean water program. A nearly $1 trillion, or $1 billion, that's with a B, 10-year capital improvement program to upgrade our wastewater system and treatment plant, which also, when completed, should eliminate these sanitary sewer overflows. It increases the facility's capacity and upgrades everything we need to do to move our wastewater and treat it so that it's safe to release into the bay or provide for another use. Last year, we made significant progress and excavated the site for the new underground flow equalization system at the event center that will also help prevent future sanitary sewer overflows. We've been hard at work expanding our wastewater treatment plant. This is a major infrastructure project that not only supports everyone who lives here, it also protects our environment and the San Francisco Bay. It's a costly project that we have to do. In 2018 and 2019, I went to Washington, D.C. with some of my fellow council members to advocate for financial assistance. We have saved ratepayers over $50 million by securing $295 million in state and federal low-interest loans to complete this work. Additionally, there's a question of what we do with this treated water. So we're looking to work with Cal Water on a project to reuse this limited resource by recharging our groundwater aquifer with the treated water, which is a known way to further treat and reuse this water naturally. Our stormwater, no matter where we live in San Mateo, runs toward the bay or the lagoon. And this year, we'll be looking at how we can improve the stormwater system we all rely upon to take the water off our streets and stop localized flooding during storms. A lot of our stormwater system is 100 years old. Here is a before and after photo of an algae cleanup we did last year in the lagoon. Sustainability is at the forefront of what we do as a city. We've upgraded all major city facilities to be more energy efficient. We received grants to install new electric vehicle chargers, and we'll be making more progress this year in converting all city streetlights to be more reliable and energy efficient. We're getting help from Peninsula Clean Energy to electrify our fleet to reduce emissions of city vehicles. We've established an electric leaf blower rebate program. We are helping restaurants reduce the amount of trash and plastics they produce from disposable containers, and we're helping to implement statewide composting requirements by working with our local Rethink Waste organization. A sustainable future means working to support the needs of everyone in our community. To that end, we've transitioned to district elections as a result of the California Voters' Rights Act. After a robust community engagement initiative, we adopted a map creating 5 city council districts. This means that starting this year, residents will vote for just one council member who lives in their district. Voters in districts 1, 3, and 5 will vote in 2022. And those in districts 2 and 4 will vote in 2024. To find your district, you can go to our website. This has the intention of helping reduce barriers to run for office and distribute representation across the city in a more equitable way. We're taking a number of steps to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise known as DEI. Last year, we formed an internal DEI committee for staff to discuss how we as an employer can be more inclusive in our workforce. We also established an external DEI task force that is getting underway this year and will include representatives from our community partners, including many of our local nonprofits. One of their main goals will be to help expand representation on our boards and commissions. Our police department has been actively working to address community concerns and engaged in numerous conversations through the Real Talk San Mateo series. They are taking steps to be more transparent with their data. They created a new accountability website showing lots of information about our police force, and they're on track to comply with new legislation that requires us to make public the demographic data of arrests and use of force. Last year, they implemented the Innovative Mindfulness Training Program for officers. That's really gotten some great reviews. And in participation with the county, we hired a mental health clinician who is now responding to calls with officers to help those who may be experiencing a mental health crisis. In 2021, our downtown police unit helped refer 96 homeless individuals for services, and we are working to create more compassionate solutions for helping those who have lost their homes. Housing needs are at the forefront of what the state is working on and what many cities are responding to. Yet yes, people can afford to live here if they can make enough money, but that is out of reach for many of our service workers and our teachers. We talk a lot about the jobs to housing imbalance, but low wages, and extremely high cost of living is the other end of that same equation. San Mateo has long been a leader in looking at ways to bridge the gap of what it costs to live here. San Mateo was first in the county to increase the minimum wage beyond the state back in 2016. I also want to address tenant protections. I know this has been talked about several times, and the state has taken some action, but we can still do a lot more to protect renters. And I look forward to discussing this with our community this year. As a member of the board of directors at Heart of San Mateo County, we're developing a model to preserve existing affordable housing, which helps retain existing units for middle-income wage earners. The county is also leveraging state assistance to purchase hotels for transitional housing in several cities, including here in San Mateo on El Camino. This is a very effective way that we can help ensure people can have a roof over their head and move forward with their lives. One of the things I'm most looking forward to this year is seeing construction of our brand new 100% affordable housing community in downtown on city-owned land. This is known as Kiku Crossing. All of the 225 units will be offered at various below market rates. We partnered with Mid-Penn Housing on this project that will create an all-electric 7-story apartment building. This development also includes a new parking garage with over 500 parking spaces for downtown visitors. This construction project will produce good paying jobs for local building trades members at the prevailing wage, which enables them to be able to afford to live here near where they work. It'll be located at 5th and Railroad Avenues and will replace 2 surface parking lots. So this really is a great example of how we can leverage underutilized land for better uses like housing. Our population is growing, and we've had a housing shortage for decades. The state requires cities to plan for future growth, so we are currently updating our housing element. This is part of the regional housing needs assessment, and we have to show that our zoning provides for thousands of new homes, including for those who are earning low and very low incomes. Let me be very clear here. The city is not a developer. We do not have a lot of land we can use for redevelopment. Building housing is expensive, and so is buying land. So we need to allow the private sector to build the housing we need. Importantly, the way we control what's being built while promoting sustainability, equity, and health is through zoning. We encourage greener buildings with more units in areas that have good access to transit, jobs, and amenities. Right now, we're updating our general plan. This is about what type of community we want to create for the next 20 years. This is how we've changed in the last decade, or think of how we've changed in the last decade, and even the last few years alone. Think about how Amazon has changed the way we shop, or how the tech sector has affected our job market, and how more people are getting to work and school using bikes or by transit. Because land is limited here, we need to look at our existing underutilized land for better and more flexible uses. We also want space, open space, and allowing for taller, denser buildings in certain areas would allow property owners to provide more spaces and places for people to enjoy the outdoors. This year, important decisions will be made as we look at how and where to accommodate this future growth. We need everyone to engage in this process. Our next community meeting on the general plan is tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. on Zoom. And you can learn more about that by going to strivesanmateo.org. So that's one word, strivesanmateo.org. I strongly encourage your attendance. There's an online survey that you can take also. So please remember, this isn't just about what we want for ourselves today. Think about how we can adapt and thrive for the next 20 or even 30 or 40 years into the future. We have an important anniversary to celebrate in 2022. Our beloved Central Park will be 100 years old. Can you imagine how different your life would have been if you were visiting our park in 2022? Well, I hope you'll join us there this year because we'll be commemorating the anniversary during our annual Summer Music in the Park series. It's a lot of fun and everybody is welcome. I know we've had to stay apart for much of the pandemic, but getting involved in your community is key as we look to create a safe, equitable, and sustainable future. We're fortunate to have some fantastic and engaged volunteers like our Team Up to Cleanup efforts in our United Police Collaborative Group. So if you can, please look at ways that you can give back by volunteering. If you're interested in living a more sustainable life, there are a lot of rebate programs from organizations like Peninsula Clean Energy that can help you reduce your carbon footprint, upgrade to more efficient appliances, or purchase an electric vehicle or e-bike. San Mateo is not defined by what the government does. Each of us as individuals contribute to creating this community, and we need to be inclusive and hear from all voices. Think of the city government as your partner. Your city government can't do this alone. We need your help to decide our future. So please be sure to look for opportunities to engage with us because that's how we become a better city. You can visit our website to learn more and get engaged. A lot has changed and quickly over the last few years. I want to end tonight with a reminder of how much we've learned through this pandemic. I am more aware now than ever before of how much we can impact our community. COVID-19 continues to pose a threat, and I know we're all tired of dealing with it, but please continue to take precautions and do the best you can. Wear a mask, get vaccinated and boosted, and think about how your actions have an effect on those around you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And now I know we've been collecting some questions in advance, so I'll ask our communications manager, Samantha, to join us and read some of those now. Samantha?
Yes. Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay, Rick?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. You know, the State of the City is really a unique event that we do every year, and I very much appreciated how much information you were able to squeeze in to a half hour there. So we, of course, received a number of questions, and unfortunately too many that we can address all here tonight, but we did pick out a few that were, you know, really relevant on a citywide basis and that came up from multiple people. And the first one is something that we hear often about and that we're frequently asked for updates on, and that's regarding train horn noise in San Mateo. So Liz asks, what is the status of the 4-quadrant gate improvements at 4th and 5th Avenues and/or other mechanisms for helping downtown San Mateo qualify as a quiet zone?
Well, thank you for that question, Liz. And I have to say, it wouldn't be San Mateo without a question about train horn noise. It's something we've been hearing about, I think, for, well, forever. The train has been here for 170 years, so it predates most of us, but it continues to make that noise, and it's actually required for safety. But that doesn't mean the city can't take some positive steps. And let me tell you what we're doing. We're working to minimize train horn impacts. It is a council priority. In 2019, I traveled to Washington, D.C. with Councilmember Diane Pappin and visited with Congresswoman Spear and the Environmental Protection Agency regarding our wastewater work. We then visited with the Federal Railroad Administration for help with train horn noise. We had our consultant with us as well as our Public Works Director, and we gathered valuable information, which we used to get us started. And it has led to the progress that we have made to this point. And I know you don't see any progress yet, but let me tell you about just a couple of things. In fact, actually, the 25th Avenue grade separations are part of that project. So the city is actively working to create these quiet zones to reduce train horns at railroad crossings. But trains will still be required to sound their horns at the 3 stations in San Mateo as they pass through the town. We've completed work at the Bay Meadows 25th Avenue grade separation project, as I said. At 4th and 5th Avenue, preliminary work has already started for 4-quadrant gate improvements. Caltrain and the city are finishing up designs, and we expect to award construction contract later this year. With federal approvals, we expect quiet zones by 2025. City staff is also evaluating additional safety measures in coordination with the California Public Utilities Commission. And they're helping to qualify downtown San Mateo as a quiet zone also. For the Villa Terrace and Bellevue Avenue areas, the city is preparing to do traffic studies this spring that were previously put on hold due to the lower traffic levels during the pandemic. But thank you for that question.
Great, thanks. So we also received a number of questions about policing. And many of those had to do with patrols on residential streets to address, you know, things like traffic and parking, as well as about property crimes. So Kathleen asks, I have concerns that there is a lower presence of law enforcement patrols on our streets, particularly at night. Could you please address what is planned for the police department in the coming year that will reduce these incidents?
Well, sure I can. And thank you, Kathleen, for this important question. I understand that this is a concern. People across the city turn on their evening news and they see a lot of crime on TV. But there's a difference between what you see TV and what the level of crime actually is in San Mateo. And so let me illustrate a couple of points. San Mateo is actually considered a very safe city, and many criminals know that we have a good police department here. Our department has reported a number of significant arrests recently, and so I hope you're watching the news to see that our police are actually out there in the places where they need to be, catching the criminals, following up with investigations, and making those arrests. Your council members continue to devote resources to improving policing in San Mateo because we know it's a priority. We have officers patrolling regularly, both on residential streets, at shopping centers, commercial areas, and our parks. We cannot have an officer on every block, though, because we just don't have the resource to do that. We have them distributed throughout the city, and they respond when they're called. Recently, we had an extensive presentation from the chief of police at the January 18th city council meeting. And the presentation was about 45 minutes long. You can watch it if you want to have more information or hear straight from the police chief's mouth what the police department is doing to improve their procedures and how they present the information that they gather to the public. So you can go to the city's website, you can look at the police department and go to their accountability page. That said, I need you to know that no department in this city is beyond needing your input. We all need to continue learning every day so that we can serve you better in so many different ways that we can learn to do. Thank you very much for that question.
Great. So another topic that is on a lot of our minds is housing. And the next question is particularly timely as a couple of new state laws went into effect this year, including Senate Bill 9. So Kevin writes, curious about how SB 9, that's Senate Bill 9, may influence future building at existing home sites. May areas previously zoned as R1 or single family residential be rebuilt with multiple homes / duplexes? If so, will there be a public input process?
Well, once again, this is a very timely question. Excuse me. And I want to thank you for asking it because it's really important right now. I want to provide a little bit of background. You know, the state has been working to address the housing shortage because in general and throughout California, cities have not allowed the housing needed to keep up with jobs and population growth. So SB 9 gives property owners the right to develop R1 lots into either split lots and or build duplexes. But there are strict state requirements to qualify to be able to do that. For properties that do qualify, it is by right under state law, but the city can review for objective design standards. So I want to acknowledge concerns. My thinking is before we see noticeable change, it will be years. People who bought an R1 generally want to live in an R1. They want that neighborhood to be preserved the way it is. And most people, in my opinion, are not going to suddenly decide to split their lot so they can make a duplex out of it or put 4 units on it. Really, for this to happen, a number of circumstances need to align before an application is brought. And it's my thinking that before we see any kind of really noticeable change, it's going to be years. Because there are new state laws, the City Council will hold a study session sometime in February to discuss implementation of SB 9 and SB 10. So I invite all who are concerned to attend that meeting. Keep your eye open for it. You can look at the city's website and see when that meeting is coming. Thank you very much for that question, though. It's important news.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I know housing regulations are very complex, but of course, a very important topic for people to learn more about. For this next one, I know you touched a little bit about this in your presentation, but we received a number of questions related to parking. So Andrea asks, is there a plan for increased parking availability in the downtown area with all the parklets and pedestrian malls taking up limited street spaces?
Well, thank you again for a great question because downtown has been a bit cramped for parking as a result of all the outdoor eating spaces that were put up to accommodate restaurants and diners. So I just need to say that a lot has been happening downtown recently, changes with the parklets, construction going on. So I want to ask everybody to please be patient with us while we go through these changes. Working with businesses to remove underutilized parking, which has already resulted in 25 parking spaces being added back to our streets just since this new year. At the Kiku Crossing site, we will add over 500 new parking spaces for downtown use. We've implemented a new low-income parking permit program for downtown, which enables employees to be able to find affordable parking through this permit coupon that they're going to be able to use. New real-time digital parking signs have been placed on the exterior of our parking garage, and this makes it easier to see what garages have space inside of them. So remember, if you're driving by there, look for those signs. It's much better than continuing to circle the block, which just adds to our congestion. Thank you very much for that question.
Great, thank you, Rick. So I think that's about all the time that we have this evening. I appreciate all the information that you've been sharing, and I know there's a lot more for people to learn. And it's been great to see a good turnout from everyone who's interested in learning what's going on in San Mateo. On that, I want to put in a quick little plug for people to stay engaged throughout the year, please. One way that you can do that is by signing up for our e-newsletter at www.cityofsanmateo.org/e-news. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you to say goodnight. Thanks.
Thank you, Samantha. And I want to say thank you to all members of the public. I have to say that it's an honor to be able to serve here as a city council member and now as the mayor. San Mateo is a great city. We have a very bright future. I'm looking forward to our ability to come together and plan for a sustainable, healthy, and equitable future. Thank you all very much.